Let's talk to William Clouston, leader of the Social Democratic Party, to see what he makes of it all. William, a very good morning.
Morning, great to be back.
Nice to see you, William. This tells me that there's quite a lot wrong with the political system in America. How do you see it playing out?
Well, the first thing that needs to be noted is the failure of the polling industry, because they have absolutely got this completely and utterly wrong. I mean, I saw polls on the eve of this that gave Biden, I mean, obviously the popular vote's different from the Electoral College, but I saw, polls 9%, 9% leads, things like that. And
there was double digits in some places, wasn't there?
Yeah, it's astonishing. And yet again, I mean, one of the rules since, I was chatting to Rod Little about this yesterday on the phone and how to call it, and it was very difficult to call. Both of us thought it'd be much closer than that. And so it's proved. So since 2015, pretty much every single election in the West has dramatically underestimated the sort of populist element of the vote, the sort of non-progressive element of the vote. And they've done it again and again and again. They've done it, in this election, no difference. So something's clearly happening. I mean, perhaps, Mike, a lot of clever people should have a look at their models, which doesn't just apply to this.
Well, funny you should say that, because I was going to get onto the lockdown modelling a little bit later on in this conversation, but it's an extraordinary thing that's happened. I saw it coming. Nobody else did, which surprises me even more. You know how reluctant I am to blow my own trumpet, William, but I'm just going to keep doing it because I did say that this would happen. And I can't believe that the Democrats have allowed themselves in a way to get into this situation.
Well, progressives all over the Western world seem to be slow learners, don't they? The basic lesson that they haven't learned, they can't learn, is that you can't despise your country and then get that country to vote for you. Yeah?
Right.
So if they don't understand that, they'll continue to lose elections and get very angry about it. I mean, obviously, there's lots of interweaving things here, but I think the fundamental thing is a political rotation of formerly Democrat voters. I mean, look, the county that Youngstown is in, the old steel town, that voted for Trump, and Democrats have got to have a look at that. So why can't they get those previously traditional Democrat voters back? Lots of reasons, but disliking the country, and I don't blame Biden. I think he's a decent chap, but obviously too old and not a brilliant candidate.
Yeah.
But
not everybody agrees. I mean, a lot of people say he's a decent chap, but there's an awful lot of things about Joe Biden that don't bear an awful lot of scrutiny. And I think Trump is right to say that this is a man who has spent his entire life inside the beltway of Washington, D.C. And I would go along with Trump's questions about his wealth and how he got from being a sort of $150,000 a year senator to a multi-millionaire with homes all over the world and sons that work in very obscure and unusual oil businesses abroad.
Yeah, I get that, Mike, but I don't. I'm making a broader point. I mean, I think the people that really let the Democrats down as a team are the people that are associated with them on the further to the left, who clearly don't like the country. And so you've got all that and the wave of BLM protesting voters basically to vote Democrat. If you were in Portland, would you vote Democrat?
I would not.
No, I mean that's the thing, and so there's a problem basically. They've detached from their core vote that they used to have, industrial workers, partly because the industries that those workers used to work in is gone, and that and again right across the West, people have to do a little bit of thinking. Those industrial wages used to support families. And instead of that, in the Rust Belt, you've got large-scale, deaths of despair and an opioid epidemic, and they're still asking people to vote for them. And I understand people's reaction. I mean, I'm not a big fan of Trump, but I understand people voting for something else, given that choice.
Also, I think people have genuinely fed up with social engineering that comes from the left, which has been going on in this country as well as it has in America. And people are sick to the back teeth of being told what to say, what to think, when to say it, and how to be nice to everybody, when in fact the people who are not being nice are the ones who are trying to destroy everything that we've spent hundreds of years building up. Yeah,
and how sweet the revenge is in the ballot, in the privacy of the polling. That's what they don't get, and I think that's what the pollsters don't understand. And this well, they used to call it a shy Tory effect or whatever. It's happening everywhere because what gets said by the mainstream media is controlled by about 10% of the population.
Yeah,
a good half of the population really aren't on that page, and they've nowhere to go. So actually you force people in the end to just vote. I mean, that's the only weapon they've got.
And I was watching the BBC this morning, Andrew Neil doing his final show, a great broadcaster, always has been, always will be. But his co-host, a woman who I didn't recognise, I'm not sure who she is, was quizzing somebody about the whole business of Donald Trump and his actions currently and what he's doing. And the amount of sort of ludicrous arrogance with which some of these broadcasters operate, talking as if they somehow are the givers and takers of all freedoms in the world, you know, and that surely he should be acting in a more presidential manner, and surely this is not what he should be doing. And it's like, well, excuse me, what's it got to do with you? You know, she's all kind of outraged and in some way sort of standing up in arms to the president of the free world who has been elected to run that country because apparently she doesn't like the way he operates.
Yeah, I mean, you can see it in the body language, actually, Mike.
Yeah.
I mean, throughout, you know, they're so upset when they don't get their own way, and the sense of entitlement is astonishing.
Right.
I mean, as you know, I've sort of tried to argue, you know, for the BBC being redeemable and savable, you know, but I don't know. I mean, it's very, very difficult. I think they show levels of bias increasingly, which is hard to take.
Yeah.
But,
no, it's absolutely extraordinary. Let's move on to the other big story of the day, which is, of course, the vote today in the House of Commons. We've got Prime Minister's questions first. We've then got a load of Conservative Party MPs who don't want to lock the country down, but are going to vote to do it anyway.
Yeah, obviously this is going to go through, and from a sort of narrow, short-term political perspective, you can see what Starmer was trying to do. He's banked on the experts advising this. And so he's advised that, you know, you should go for another lockdown. And sure enough, it comes along and the government cave into it. But now there is a breach in the Conservative Party, isn't there? I mean, it's not just Red Wall voters. It's people like Desmond Swayne and others who are not going to put up with this. But they're a minority, and this lockdown will happen anyway. I mean, from the start, they've been locking down on fairly flaky footings, actually legally. But I've no doubt this vote will go through. But as I said before, it's a mistake. What the government haven't done from the very, very start is create any policy stability at all. So they've literally stop-go sharp turns from the very start, and it's soul-destroying actually to look at retailers and other people in business who've done everything they've been asked to do, absolutely everything they've been asked. They put the screens up, they've made their premises COVID safe, they've worked very hard, and they were weakened by the previous lockdown, which I supported. I mean, I think that was a rational.
I think most people did, William.
Yeah. But not successive lockdowns. I just think it's a terrible policy, and you know, if you wanted to seed uncertainty, this is pretty much the best way to go about it.
And also, there's never really been a definitive exit plan, and lots of people have been demanding that. John Redwood was talking to us yesterday about that. And the fact is that, for example, in Wales, Mark Drakeford will lift the 2-week lockdown, the fire break, as he called it, next week. But he wasn't in a position, and neither is this government, as far as I can see, giving any kind of sort of strategic plan for what would be termed a success. You know, what will he tell us, and what will he tell the people of Wales when they come out of the fire break lockdown? Will he say, well, the reason we did it was for this reason, and because we've achieved this, and we can call it a success? Nobody's ever having those conversations.
No, I mean, it's yet another weakness in the strategy, and you can't. Yeah, I mean, calling things fire breaks and things doesn't get around the fact that they're locked. I mean, for me, I'm calling it lockdown 1 and lockdown 2. Yeah. I mean, I think what will inevitably happen is that the pressure to unlock for Christmas will be significant. I think they'll probably unlock to some extent, possibly when they say, you know, in the first week of December, but possibly a little bit later. Give retailers a little bit of a chance. Then people will convene at Christmas, and then the committee will say the R is well above 1 again. So we lock down again in January. And I can't see, you know, with the seasonality of this, I can't see any hope with the government's stance that you wouldn't have a lockdown until mid-March.
No. I mean, it's like the okey cokey, the R rate, isn't it? I mean, as soon as you open up the schools and you open up universities and you open up restaurants, the R rate goes up before anybody's even gone anywhere, you know, because it's one of those statistical models, and that's how it works. But when you see Chief Scientific Advisor Sir Patrick Vallance actually admitting for the second time in as many months that he used update figures to terrify the people of this country. I mean, how can this guy still be in a job?
Well, it's weird. I mean, one of our party members is a senior lecturer at one of the northern universities, and he said he was looking at that press conference. Said, if I wanted to really baffle a lecture theatre full of students, what I would do is successively bombard them with lots and lots of graphs without headings. That's a pretty good method of doing so.
Right.
As I say, I think, and I've said this before, Mike, an obvious error in the government's approach is not to have a parallel committee. Fraser Nelson put quite a good piece in The Spectator on the weekend about COVID.
Yeah.
He made the point that there is no parallel committee to look at the collateral costs of lockdown. So what the government are doing, and they've done this from the start, is they've got half the advice. So you listen to Nerve, Tag and Sage, fine, perfectly reasonable, listen to those. But where is the committee advising the government on the macro cumulative collateral costs to health, welfare and the economy of the suppression measures? And there isn't. If you don't have that, literally you're making policy in the dark.
Yeah. Well, not only making policy in the dark, but not really being responsible for that policy, not really being held to account, because regardless of what Sir Keir Starmer may be doing now, claiming that, they should have done what he said they should have done 2 weeks ago, but now he agrees with what they're doing, but they should have done it before. The fact that they're not really being held to account in Parliament, they're not really being held to account mostly by the press. And instead what they're doing is saying, well, if you disagree with us, you must be one of those evil people that wants to see all old people dying.
Yeah, that's true. They're not being. I mean, we don't have an opposition apart from small parties like ours. I think we're the only party pretty much that has a policy objecting to these measures. But
well, now Nigel Farage says he's going to occupy the same territory as you guys.
Yeah, he did. Yeah, but to be fair to him, he wasn't saying that in the summer. He was saying the opposite.
Well, anyway, he's saying it now.
Yes. Well, I'll let people make their own minds up about that. Right. I mean, consistency. If you're a serious political party, you need to be consistent about what your approach is and think about it, not just jump on bandwagons. But leave that aside. The point is that what's happening is the opposition is actually the public. And again, to go back to polling, I don't know where they get these polls on public support for lockdown.
I really don't know where that's coming from.
I must be in a bubble. I mean, and yet I'm not. I speak to people all over the country constantly, and not just SDP members, but many, many other people. And I think the opposition in the end is basically the people who. The really sad thing about this, Mike, is that at the start, do you remember, if you go back to March, April, the level of public solidarity was very, very high, and it was a good feeling. I mean, everyone was behind the government's approach. We're all in it together. A lot of people were organising community volunteer groups and so on. And all of that. Not all of it, but a lot of that solidarity, the sense of solidarity and unity, has been shredded. And I think it's been shredded because basically the government had no basic confidence in the public's ability to be sensible and to abide by the 5 sensible protocols, which are going to be here pretty much in perpetuity, but to make them mandatory and to have these draconian lockdowns, I think is just mistaken. It doesn't give the.
I mean, they've asked for us to trust them, but they haven't trusted us. Is the bottom line for me. And also, they haven't really earned the trust of the people because they've misled the people. They haven't been transparent. They've given them data which has been doctored. No, I'm not calling them liars. I'm not calling them dishonest. But what I am saying is that they have, shall we say, been economical with the actuality, which is not obviously my original words, but you know what I mean? They haven't told us the truth and the whole truth.
Yeah, there's a sense. I mean, obviously Boris Johnson personally has had a terrible time and it is a major, major challenge. But if you go, I mean, I don't keep these press conferences on file, but if you listen to what Johnson was saying very early on, certainly in March, April, he was saying to the public, we'll have this cracked. And in his usual way, being slightly over-optimistic about what he could achieve. But, in reality, I just wish people would be sensible. I think the public get this. This virus is endemic now. It's not going to just be magicked away. And, as far as an end game is concerned, I mean, if the end game is a vaccine, you've got a major problem. Because I've looked at polls and you've got to be skeptical, but there's a very, very large slice of the public are not really willing to have a vaccine.
No.
And yet parliamentary committees have taken evidence from lawyers on compulsory vaccination, which I find horrifying.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, again, having done that, expecting nobody to discover that that's what they've been doing, you know? And I mean, whether or not they've ever got an idea of actually wishing to bring that into play, you do worry about the sort of scientific mind that goes, well, look, they've accepted lockdown, so let's just decide to inject them without their consent. Really? Who are these people?
No, I just don't think it's going to work. I mean, apart from anything, again, these policymakers must be living in a bubble.
Well, they're not going to inject me without my permission, I can tell you that.
Exactly. So the resistance to it in reality is going to be very, very high. I mean, and I'm not an anti-vaxxer. I think vaccine could and should, in the end, might be very, very useful. But I prefer not to have it administered to me without me knowing about it. Oh, I mean, that's the whole idea of that is horrific. And the idea of compulsory vaccination, I think, is very, very serious in the free society. You've got to be, if you're a young person, Mike, you would ask yourself, given the risk to you of COVID, what's the higher risk?
Yeah.
Taking a vaccine that's just been developed very quickly, or getting the actual disease. So I think they have to be careful about that. But if
if I was a young person, I have young children, teenagers, kids in their 20s, they're, I presume, wondering when this is all going to end, because for their adult lifetime, this has been quite a long time. This has been going on.
Yeah, I mean, no, but just in terms of the long-term scarring, all the evidence is and again, it's something the SDP has pointed out from the start. This idea that you can switch the economy and society off like a light switch, it's a very, very detailed, it's a very complex ecosystem, this, and you can't just switch it back on. It's not like a toy train set. And we've said, the government is risking a prolonged economic depression. If that happens, that scars the opportunities and life chances of a generation forever. I mean, all the evidence is in on that, I'm afraid. It's not to say that people within that generation won't do very well. Many of them will. But, if you lock doors, if doors don't open, if opportunities don't present themselves to a whole cohort of young people, all the evidence is that it lasts right until retirement. They don't get started. So, again, I just wish the government were capable of taking a broader view, understanding this is endemic, and putting in some policy stability so we could all plan and live reasonably normal lives.
A plan. Now, there's a good idea. I'd vote for that. William Clouston, thank you very much indeed, leader of the Social Democrat Party. We are live.